Excellent. Well, thanks for joining both, Cam, Michele. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. I'll kick things off, and we will be taking questions from you folks in the audience. So if you have something specific, it's a great opportunity to be able to ask these folks some questions and get some real answers. I'll start with a question to Cam. Can you provide examples of specific industries or use cases where AI has already made a significant impact? Say, for example, like, a lot of our members here are action-oriented people, manufacturing, trucking, things like that. So perhaps say in a large-scale trucking operation or manufacturing company.
So great question. It's been interesting as we've developed out the Institute here. By nature of being in Alberta, we've really focused on programs that intersect with Alberta and Alberta type companies. And what that's meant has been a lot of energy companies, a lot of supply chain, and really start to dig deep into the challenges that those types of companies hit. So, one example, or a couple, I talked about antibiotics there. We worked with another supply chain company, similar thing in a warehouse optimization, warehouse management. And for them, it was about predicting the amount of inventory that they were going to need, based on the consumer demand that they were going to have. You don't want to carry too much inventory. You don't want to carry too little. So really important thing. Wasn't a huge, super complicated machine learning system. Was pretty basic stuff that was off the shelf that they were able to leverage as an organization, but made a huge operational impact in what they were doing. Another one, an energy company that we worked with here in the province, we worked with on predictive maintenance. So kind of in a similar vein, you don't want to fix a piece of machinery too often. You also don't want to forget to fix it. So when the optimal time to be able to do that is, when something will likely break down or when performance is going to start to degrade. We spend a lot of time with organizations like that.
Excellent. Thank you. Now one for Michele. One of Prairie Can's roles is as an investor to create jobs and growth through strategic investments. Can you provide examples of recent investments or targeted initiatives that have had a significant impact on business and communities here in Alberta?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Alta ML for this one. So Alta ML is one of the artificial intelligence companies that are here. We have a business and scale-up productivity program where we can provide repayable loans with zero interest for companies that are scaling and growing and meet a whole bunch of other requirements in our program, good federal government program. But we've supported Alta ML to grow and scale their business. And one of the things that Alta ML has been able to do is work with the province of Alberta, with the cities, Edmonton and Calgary, and we're now trying to bring in the federal government into this as well, to create something called GovLab AI. And what they're doing is creating these platforms to test use cases to then deploy using government data, government services, again, to try and use artificial intelligence to inform and provide better services. So things like, how do we deploy wildfire personnel using mapping of where the hotspots are? Things like, how do you do predictive maintenance on public facilities so that we know where we have to go to repair before the damages occur in different facilities that the city might have? How do you plan where the next school goes based on population and other data sets? So some really incredible things that are not just helping grow businesses here, but helping solve broader public policy problems.
Great, thank you. Now one for both of you. How can the integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning technology, as promoted by Amii, align with the economic development goals and priorities set forth by Prairie's Can? What potential synergies exist between AI-driven innovation and regional economic growth?
Yeah, let me start, and then you can jump in. Because I'm a health person, I'm so excited about artificial intelligence in the health space. And we have, again, another one of those institutes that we've invested in this province for a long time is the Alberta Virology Institute and Lauren Tyrell. And one of the things that they're doing now is using artificial intelligence to screen for drugs. And if you know anything about drug development, historically, drug development would have taken 10 to 15 years. And in talking to my colleagues and friends in the pharma industry now, they have been able to identify and isolate possible active compounds and shorten that to 12 months to 24 months. And so we are going to see the volume of new drugs and the volume of new opportunities and therapeutics to treat and make people live longer, healthier, happier lives as a result of these technologies. And so Prairie Scan has invested $80 million in a project called the Canadian Critical Drug Institute. This one's not AI focused, but again, you see all of these pieces coming together in an ecosystem. We can really build and create an opportunity to manufacture drugs here, to grow health and life sciences business here, and capitalize on the skills and knowledge in the artificial intelligence sector to do this in just an incredibly different way.
Excellent, Cam.
Yeah, so great question. I really see AI as an amplifier of every industry. So, it's one of those, like, every investment that Prairie Scan is making in some way can or should be amplified by AI. And so as far as regional economic development goes, it's just this, like, really big lever to be able to help all of those initiatives. So a very high level, big opportunity there. When you look at the things that we care about as the region here, bio, health, ag, energy, these really core industries for us, I can tell you, like, around the world, AI is playing an enormous impact in each of these. And so for us, again, we're, as kind of a unique both research investor and commercialization investor. On the research side, we're investing in profs in each of those areas. So we're the first places that's putting researchers in the medicine department, in the bio department, in the chemistry department, in the agriculture faculty, in each of these areas to be able to have AI researchers driving out the future and amplifying the work being done there. So investing on that side, and then making sure that the bridges exist so that, again, that knowledge, talent, and technology can make its way into opportunities here. And one thing I'll just mention that, yeah, it again can feel like, okay, well, this is great, but I'm not going to hire 4 PhDs in machine learning in my trucking organization. Like this, there's no fit here. There's a really great opportunity to be able to partner with companies, to be a first customer for one of the incredible startups here that would happily build that solution for you, to buy something off the shelf of startups that already exist here, or to be able to buy something and leverage something like ChatGPT and what you're doing already. And so the barrier to entry to leverage AI and what you're doing has changed dramatically from I need to hire a bunch of AI PhDs in my business to that might be the right decision, or I might need to just be a great customer and integrate it well into what I'm doing.
Excellent. Thanks for that. That's a good lead into the next question I have for you, which is, first of all, how do they engage with you? Number one, how do they identify those highest priorities? And what's that process look like from start to finish?
Yeah, so for us, we tend to engage with companies in 3 core ways. So training's one. I mentioned that as a course. We also do kind of deep dives with companies where it's like bring the experts together from the domain experts together from your team. We'll bring some experts from our team on the machine learning side and dive in deep to where machine learning can be leveraged in what you're doing. So Kuva, as an example, in the methane emission detection side, that started there. So it started with a deep dive there about what the opportunities in machine learning were. Then we actually did a project that was funded by Prairie Scan to be able to validate what the right next step for them was going to be. And then it ended up in a larger project with us where we brought in somebody to work on that for a year, really propel that project forward, create momentum on it. And then that person actually now joined the Kuva team. So that pipeline is a really big one for us. So that kind of training into projects, into talent is the really big way that we end up typically working with companies.
Excellent. And then maybe, because I know this question's on everybody's mind, it's on mine. How much does it cost me if I want to get you guys to come out and take a look at my operation and tell me this is where you could best deploy AI right now?
Yeah, so we stage gate things, and like the start, like the trainings in the like hundreds of dollars, the kind of deep dives in the thousands type thing. So what we really try and do is stage gate things through to say, look, early, when you're looking at this early, it's a riskier thing. Spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on this, like, is there something here isn't the right path to go? So let's spend a little bit to identify the opportunity there. And then as you de-risk that over time, then the project, it kind of is just scoped based on what's going to provide value and the size of the project there. And typically that'll go into the kind of like tens to couple $100,000 range. But that's like once a full project's been scoped and you're having meaningful work being done on your specific area, providing business value to what you do. So that's kind of the range in there.
Yeah, and just as an aside, I have engaged with the folks at Amii before, and I think as the value that you get as a user of everything that they have is so much greater than the actual cost itself. So, I would encourage anybody out there to, lean on CAM, lean on the province of Alberta, because, just the value you're getting for the services they provide is immense. Thank you.
I'll pay you for that later.
You can buy me a drink after. Now, a question for Michele. I noticed when I was reading through your bio, you certainly brought a wealth of experience to this current role. You haven't been in the role that long. I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about what drew you to Prairie's Can and what have been some of your early successes. And it doesn't have to be in the AI machine learning space. It could be in almost anything that you've been involved in.
Yeah, I mean, so what drew me to Prairie's Can, like anything, the opportunity to grow and expand in a different network and understand a different way of looking at things. And so the right moment in time came up, and I chose to make the leap from the province to the federal system. And what an eye-opening system it is. It is a machine. There is I'm continually amazed at the quality and depth of capacity within the federal public service and the commitment they have to doing the right thing for Canada. And that's not always the right thing for our jurisdiction, but it is a commitment to taking our country to a better place. And I think that just the understanding how complicated and how big the machine is and how many things are happening has been just a real eye-opener for me. At Prairie's Can, the thing that really attracted me and drew me was, again, having the opportunity to bring the resources to this province. And one of the things I'm just thrilled with is the commitment and the passion of the people that I'm working with. We have offices in Lethbridge. We have an office in Grand Prairie. We have one in Fort Mac. We have a ton of staff in Calgary. I've got 130 staff throughout the province that are here, that are trying to work with a variety of different things. So whether it's work that we're doing with Olds College on the robotic tractor that the operator drove from Ukraine on a field in Alberta, or the work that we're doing with the Arts Entrepreneurship Center in Fort Mac, or if it's the methane emission testing center that we're working on with Tourmaline. We have a tremendous breadth of projects and sectors that we get to touch, communities that we get to support, and a number of different programs that come. So it just I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Community Future programs. For those of you who are not purely Edmonton-based, we've been funding community futures throughout this province for the last 35 years. And through the pandemic, on behalf of Prairie's Can, they deployed almost $85 million through the Recovery and Relief Fund to businesses and help them navigate through the pandemic. And I'm just so proud of that group of organizations and what they're able to do day after day after day to support businesses and grow the next business and the next successful business. So we just have it's super fun. Super fun.
You certainly do have the passion for it. It's great to see. So now a question for both of you. As technology and innovation continue to evolve, what role do you see AI playing in addressing the regional economic challenges and opportunities in the coming years? How can business and government organizations work together to harness both the full potential of AI, but also to create a sustainable economic Alberta?
I want to start, and then Cam will probably jump in, I think. There's been a ton of talk about the federal regulations, in particular in the energy space, whether it's the emissions cap, the methane emissions regs, the fuel standards, clean electricity regs. Like there's a tremendous amount of things that government is trying to do to move things forward. And one of the ways we will be successful is through the deployment of technology. And Cam talked a little bit about methane. We've been a leader in this province in methane emissions. We will be a leader in this province in continued methane emissions reduction because of the deployment of artificial intelligence and better effective deployment of our services, whether it's the trucks or whether it's the valves and the pipes and the different things that we have going on within the energy sector. But we are in a position of real transformation around the world, and we will lose our competitive advantage if we do not deploy this technology. If you do not find a way to adopt this technology in your businesses, Alberta will not be competitive with the rest of the world. And so I cannot emphasize enough Cam's call for getting involved and leading. We have a real opportunity to prepare for the future as opposed to waiting for the future to show up on our doorstep. And I don't know what that holds. It might be a net zero future by 2050. It might be sooner than that. We will see what happens, but we do need to deploy these technologies and get ready for what is coming, because the world is deploying these technologies and we can't be left behind.
Yeah, what she said. I guess the only part I'd say from my side is like there's things around regulation that are like well above my pay grade. There's decisions that are being made, not just outside of the province, but outside the country. Like the rest of the world's making decisions in these areas that we're just gonna have to accept in some cases. And so, like when I look at like what our role in all this is, and it's how do we put ourselves in the best possible position to be successful. And so for us, that's working with energy companies to be way more efficient at what they're doing, to reduce emissions in what they're doing. And we've had a ton of success in that area. It's working with the healthcare system that's rising in cost everywhere, not just here, everywhere around the world. When you have aging populations, this is a huge, huge challenge. How do we better use data to be able to optimize those systems? And that's everything from optimizing services through to providing tools to doctors and to clinicians.
Staffing, to improve our staffing. How do we staff our hospitals?
Yeah, how do we? So we spun out a company around hospital staffing, around being able to optimize that. So a lot of these on our side, it's really about how do we leverage this opportunity that we have here to be in the best possible position for success? And the second part on that is by leading there, it also puts us at a different point in the conversation where we're leaders in this, and being able to have the conversation as a leader in a field is completely different. And so that puts us in a different point, both provincially, nationally, internationally, about the conversation of the core industries and of the core things that matter to Albertans. And so, from our side, we're doing everything to make sure that those core areas, again, of energy, health, ag, that we're leading in those areas and positioning ourselves as a province to be in the best place to also drive international leadership.
Yeah, like you said in your presentation, that foundation is there. We're top 3 in the world at research and all the programs, everything around AI. Now we need to be the world leader in adoption. Yeah, and that's where all of us in the room come in. Any questions from the floor? Oh, there we go.
How do you take advantage of AI prediction in health, like for either genetic level or even just scans of x-rays and stuff like that, to take advantage of that predictive power without sacrificing privacy issues?
I'll just repeat the question so that, and if I butcher it, please forgive me, just so that everybody can hear. The question was around how do you use AI to predict things like gene expression, and how do you balance that between the predictive nature and the outcomes versus the privacy issues?
Super hard problem. Super hard problem. So a lot of the places where government's deploying AI, we're carefully staying away from the people sides of things. So that will come as we figure out and understand how to deploy some of these things. So I don't have a great answer for you, but I do have a number of really cool applications here in Alberta. We're reading cardiovascular and heart and the cardiovasculars using that to read a variety of different images. The lab, Precision's lab, was testing artificial intelligence to read biopsies. Again, improving and reducing the human requirement and improving the accuracy. So there are ways that you can do that without violating privacy, deploying it in different ways. We will get there eventually about how we do some of that. Lots of conversations around synthetic data and different ways that you could get around that, but we're not quite there yet, I don't think.
Yeah, often, so in specific areas, it's not too bad. So you have a deployed system that is reading an X-ray beside a doctor. It's deployed on that device within a secure data setting. So usually that's actually totally fine. There's very little issue there, and there's been exciting studies done where they've shown 90% accuracy with the doctor, 89% accuracy with the algorithm, and then together they're like 98% accurate type thing. So these systems where they're able to work well together and take advantage of both the advantages of person brings, the algorithm brings. That works well. So the specific instances, a company that spun out from us, Meadow, they do ultrasounds, and ultrasounds are these great cheap devices that you can have in ideally any clinic. In any kind of rural, remote, whatever setting, but they're often finicky and tough to use. And so using AI to be able to help guide inexperienced user to run an ultrasound and be able to leverage that tool for diagnoses in a rural setting is a really big advantage. But again, that's on device. It's within a set data standard. And so privacy tends to not be a challenge as much of a challenge there. Where it does tend to be a challenge is when you're starting to look at like population data sets. So, okay, across all of the population of Alberta, looking at all of the health records, we want to be able to, predict, something around like predict heart attacks type thing. So that tends to be a little bit tougher because all of a sudden you have broader access to less specific requests around data, and then that tends to bring a little bit more challenges. And I think it's a discussion that we need to have as a society that goes, okay, well, if we can open that up a little bit more, and I can do a better job of predicting if your dad's going to have a heart attack. Are we okay with that trade-off, with a little loss of privacy and a big gain in both healthcare impact and really impact in our lives? If we can say, hey, you're a higher chance, let's go do this extra scan, or get you on this program to be able to help you out. Huge help, huge benefit to people. And so I think there's some questions around health data that we just need to basically make a decision as a society about what level we're comfortable with, because there's really, really great opportunities to both have a huge economic impact, but also just a huge impact on people's lives.
One of the things that is not health related, but there have been deployments, our immigration team deployed, and bias becomes the other thing within the algorithms. And so we haven't talked a lot about, never mind the privacy, but again, using some of the bias of the systems, and sometimes that gets built into some of these models. So there's just a lot of challenges when you get into those personalized things and making decisions or using things to inform choices around care or other provisions that you get into that we still have a lot of work to do in some of that space.
Another question? Oh, there's one from,
So Corey's a good friend of mine, so we actually engaged in a deep dive with AltML, and I wonder, I think it'd be good for the room for you guys to speak to the challenges of, this cruise ship mentality that a lot of larger corporations have, and how to fit the innovations piece within their business, right? Where you do have use cases that are worth going to production, but you get that kind of corporate bureaucracy and how to navigate those challenges, maybe help people be kind of sponsor that within those.
Yeah, the question was just around some of the challenges. Obviously, the work that that they do at AltML and Amii moves at the speed of light, but companies like Shell move at the speed of a super tanker. So it's, how do you address those challenges?
Yeah, so good question. I mean, anytime you're deploying new technology, the technology parts, this amount of it, and then the change management is like this amount of it. The funny part, often in, we've done work with Shell in the past, and they have extremely sophisticated teams deploying machine learning in what they're doing. And so often, to be honest, like large companies, they can throw a lot of people and consultants and all this at the change management piece and be able to navigate that. Often it's like the mid cap companies that are, there's a plethora in Alberta that end up having a little bit harder of a challenge kind of navigating that, deployment of a new technology, change management around what it means for their organization, that type of thing. What we've found, the first thing, and this is why we're really excited and focused on this exec and boards piece, is that that's where a big gap exists right now. And you come to, if I was going to, not my board of an AI institute, but, going to my board, and I was saying, hey, we need to invest like $1 million in AI. This is going to revolutionize what we're doing, on and on. For a lot of boards, they don't have a framework for how to think that decision through. It gets put in an IT bucket. Well, it's not the same as IT. It's not the same as engineering. It's a more iterative process. It's a little bit more of a discovery-driven process that you don't know until you dig into. And so having a framework for boards to be able to empower executives around what that means for executives to be able to empower their managers, their product managers, these types of things is really important. So we actually think that that's the big gap right now in Alberta, is that piece, that literacy and framework piece, to be able to really empower organizations to be able to do that. Because if you don't have C-level buy-in, if you don't have board level buy-in, that change management is not going to happen in the organization. Once you do, turns out that people are willing to get on board a lot more, and you're able to get over some of those change management pieces and start to gain momentum. And that's kind of the other piece, is we like to find these smaller, meaningful projects, because once we've found that companies gain momentum and see the value in the area, then it just tends to snowball and go really, really quickly and grow fast.
I want to just emphasize a couple things Cam said. This is not an IT department project. So that executive leadership is really important, and it really is the frontline staff, the business, your market, your sales guy, the guy that's out driving the truck. Those are the ones that you actually need to have engaged in identifying the business problems that you're trying to solve. It's not just an IT department project. And data hygiene. If you have garbage in, you will get garbage out. And so one of the things as a business that you can do to prepare is really understand what kind of data do you actually have, and thinking about how are you gathering that data, how are people inputting that data, and do you have good clean data sets? Because that's probably one of the biggest hurdles, I think, too, Cam, that beyond the change management, which is significant.
What are some characteristics you can share with us, the tasks or processes or projects within our companies that we can be thinking about that would be prime or right examples for AI to apply to?
Yeah, the question was, how do you identify, or which specific tasks and functions are good candidates for Cam and his team to start looking at within your organization?
Drafting a letter or a memo about how you feel about federal regulations.
In the tone of an Albertan.
In the tone of an Albertan.
Yeah, so I think I put the 5 Ps up there. That's like a good kind of framework. So what's an area that, so one, what's going to actually drive business value? And this is where a lot of companies stumble, is they get in an area. We have data and then we can predict this. Well, it's great, but it's meaningless to our business. So what are the actual meaningful areas that are going to drive, if we could change this, would have a meaningful, a 20% change to EBITDA type thing. What's meaningful to our company? What's going to drive business value there? And so that's one question, I think, to start. And the kind of next piece in there is, how much operational change are we going to have to look at in order to make this happen? So is this something we can integrate in at all? And then the kind of last one is, what kind of data do we either need to start capturing or have we captured in order to get that? And, unfortunately, we almost worked with a company that provides hotels, let's say, to a number of regions, and they came to us and were like, hey, Dougie's been pricing these hotels in the corner for like 20 years. Like, do you think you can work with us on? We're like, yeah, like 20 years of like price elasticity. Like, we can help on that for sure. Make some predictions about what prices should be. Like, what does your data look like? Where they're like, oh, like we haven't recorded any of it. Like, Doug's just been publishing them, and we're like, yeah, you're gonna have to come back to us once you've actually brought some of this data in, and then we can help you from there. So that's kind of the third piece. Like, do you have the data to be able to be able to make decisions, to be able to make predictions off of? And I'll echo, but then slightly counter what Michele said. So data does matter a lot. Having data in a form, if you just have noise, you're just noise in, noise out. The only thing I'd say is, like, we've also seen companies that have just spent forever trying to get the cleanest, most perfect data, and it's this chaotic quest to have the perfect data storage, data lake, all these things. And what we found is that companies who are both able to get their data into any sort of form, but then start the machine learning process early, and that informs what they need to do on the data side, which helps inform them on the machine learning side. So the two balance each other. So I wouldn't wait forever until you have every piece of data in the perfect possible position before you get started.
I think the big piece there is get started now, get started small, and then recognize this isn't like buying an Outlook or a CRM, client relationship system. This is a journey and a commitment over time that you're going to build and be a little bit more agile in how you develop it in your organization. So it requires a long-term commitment, hence the executive support and sponsorship.
Okay, I think that's a wrap. What I'm going to do now is just allow you guys to make any closing comments, action items, or whatever you might want to say. But it's been a pleasure to have you here, and boy, the learnings have been fantastic. So thank you both.
Well, I'll start by just saying thanks for having us. It's always fun to come talk to business leaders and reach out, connect with our team. We're here to help. I know that's fun coming from a government person, but we really are. We are excited about the potential in our province, and whatever sector you're in, we can probably find a program or a service or some kind of support for you. And so get engaged, be curious, and just start.
Yeah, I'll just finish with what I kind of finished with my presentation. Like, let's lead. Figure out a way. We would love to be part of that journey, but there's great companies in town to engage with. We have opportunity in the most important technology of our time to be the world leaders in it. Let's lead.
Thank you very much.